Hello and welcome back to UnHerd. In the past couple of days, the Bitcoin crowd has descended on Las Vegas. In extraordinary scenes, large numbers of the Trump administration, headed by Vice President J.D. Vance, but also present both of the Trump sons, Eric and Don Jr., and a number of other people associated with the administration, including David Sachs, who is their crypto czar, were all the stars of an industry gathering to loud music, excitable speeches. The crypto crowd, the crypto bros, as they are sometimes called, were there in force. And it was a very interesting to observe fusion of a kind of government event with a very specific and somewhat controversial industry. I think it's something we need to take the time to actually understand in a bit more detail. And to help us do that, I'm delighted we have to join us today Ben Schiller, who is the managing editor of opinion at CoinDesk.
Thanks for having me on.
I just want to start detailing exactly what happened in the past couple of days. So this conference is the official Bitcoin conference, and the keynote address of it was the Vice President, J.D. Vance, who, let's not forget, was originally bankrolled by Peter Thiel, is someone who is deeply enmeshed in Silicon Valley ways of thinking. And he gave, we'll play a clip of it in just a moment, but he gave really quite an extraordinary speech. He talked about, in a kind of democratic language, how he feels the crypto movement is making money for millions of Americans. He also said, this is a quote, "I still own a fair amount of Bitcoin today," to huge cheers. He bought in 5-6 years ago, so he's made a tidy profit on that. He wanted the crowd present, to be more involved in the politics. He wanted more donations for future campaigns. He was really activated around that. So he was inviting a kind of fusion of the crypto movement and the political movement. And even, to my mind, quite extraordinarily for someone who is in theory a populist who is skeptical about kind of capitalism run amok, he says we reject regulators. You know, he's against the regulators. He was basically saying, we're your guys. We are going to juice. Another phrase in the clip we're about to play, he said, I'm not just saying this to juice my own coin. I mean, let's have a listen, and then you tell me what your reaction to it was.
Crypto is a hedge against bad policymaking from Washington, no matter what party is in control. It's a hedge against skyrocketing inflation, which has eroded the real savings rate of Americans over the last 4 years. And as you all know well, it's a hedge against a private sector that's increasingly willing to discriminate against consumers on the basis of their basic beliefs, including their politics. And I'm here today to say loud and clear, with President Trump, crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House. I promise I'm not just saying that to juice my own meme coins. Our administration, we prioritize eliminating the rules, the red tape, and the lawfare that we saw aimed at crypto by our predecessors. We're ending the weaponization of federal regulations against this community. To put it simply, Operation Choke Point 2.0 is dead, and it's not coming back under the Trump administration. We want our fellow Americans to know that crypto and digital assets, and particularly Bitcoin, are part of the mainstream economy and are here to stay. We know that the PRC doesn't like Bitcoin. The People's Republic of China doesn't like Bitcoin. Well, we should be asking ourselves, why is that? Why is our biggest adversary such an opponent of Bitcoin? And if the Communist Republic of China is leaning away from Bitcoin, then maybe the United States ought to be leaning into Bitcoin, and that's one of the things that we're going to be doing.
So, Ben, what was your takeaway listening to that?
Well, I agree. It's an extraordinary moment of this kind of alignment between crypto and this current administration. And this has been a long time happening. And maybe it might be useful to take a bit of a step backwards and sort of see how we got to this moment. I mean, it really comes on the back of the crypto industry feeling very undervalued in the United States and generally around the world. The previous administration, the Biden administration, was very anti-crypto. It instructed the SEC, the main regulatory body here, to very much crack down on crypto companies. There were a number of ways in which crypto companies were debanked. And anything really the crypto industry wanted to do was maligned by the kind of Democratic elite. Trump came along about a year ago, actually in Nashville, at the same conference, the Bitcoin conference, and really became the first politician to stand up in crypto and say, I'm your friend. These guys have been bashing you. The Democrats have been bashing you. I'm going to be your friend. And if you help to elect me into the White House, which they did, which crypto did, then I'm going to be your friend. And he very much has been. So we've seen over the last few months since Trump was inaugurated, a series of very big deregulatory measures that have helped the crypto community. And now we see it's kind of a victory speech, really, from J.D. Vance, Trump's deputy, in Las Vegas this week. And that's really how it's come about.
So why, I mean, this is the million-dollar question. Why has the movement around Donald Trump pretty much 180 degrees changed from being very skeptical a few years ago about crypto and Bitcoin to being totally brazenly advocates for them and profiting from that combination? I just want to take a moment to trace some of the points in history. If we look at where Donald Trump was in 2019, which may feel like ancient history now in 2025, but it's not that long ago. Quote, I am not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money. Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior. This is him as President 1.0. He was actually exploring regulation himself as president. 2021, an interview with Fox Business in June. He says, quote, Bitcoin, it just seems like a scam. I don't like it because it's another currency competing against the dollar. So that's 4 years ago. And at that point, it feels like an anti-populist movement because it's somehow challenging the dollar. Trump loves the dollar. It's challenging the power of the government when he's in the government. And therefore, it's kind of not aligned with what he wants to see. 2 years later, he seems to enter the market himself. He launches a kind of digital trading card NFT in late 2022. That goes very well. It seems to make millions of dollars for him. Earlier last year, it looks like a full embrace. He launches the Trump memecoin, literally the day before the inauguration, I believe this was launched, which rapidly appreciates in value, personally makes the Trump family millions of dollars. And at this point, he's now just loves it. Crypto is about freedom. It's about taking back control from big banks and globalists, is what he says in 2024. And we're going to trace some of their actual business dealings in a moment. But that's the question. Is it personal profit and shady or, let's say, questionable dealings all around the administration that have prompted this complete U-turn? Or is it an ideological change where they're like, actually, we got it wrong. We now think Bitcoin is great?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the politics, right? So I think he saw a huge opportunity in the crypto community to raise money for his campaign. And, crypto writ large gave him a lot of money and gave the Republicans a lot of money. They also gave a lot of more sort of intangible support from voters, particularly young male voters who were not that likely to vote. They have a low propensity to vote, who actually came out in support of Trump last November and showed themselves at the ballot. So I think it's partly about money. It's partly about kind of intangible sort of ideological support, and actually also people on the ground coming to polling places and getting out to vote, people who were not necessarily likely to vote. Whatever you think about Trump, and, I have a lot of mixed feelings, I think this was a kind of brilliant politics because Trump understood that there was clear blue water here, that nobody was really catering to this crypto community, which was a sort of a large kind of iceberg in the political sphere that nobody was really helping and embracing. And he went to their conference and said, I'm going to be your guy, and it paid off handsomely for him. And I think you could really make a strong argument to say that crypto is the reason why Trump is actually in the White House. It gave him money, it gave him votes, and it was really a big own goal from the Democrats to not embrace crypto, or at least to be seen as so anti-crypto that everyone in crypto was so against the Democrats. Yeah, I think it comes down to politics. It comes down to money. And I think also, crypto for a long time said it wasn't political, but I think there was always more alignment between the Republican, libertarian, anti-government right and crypto than was really let on. And I think he also understood that. And there were a lot of smart people around Trump who understood that this was a big opportunity for him, and he walked right into it and embraced it. And crypto needed a friend. It had no sort of friends in politics, and he was going to be that guy. So crypto put aside its own feelings about Trump and went with it.
I agree with you, the kind of pragmatic and maybe somewhat forgiving explanation. It's the retail exchange of support for votes, and we've seen that for centuries, frankly. But the personal business dealings of people all around the administration in crypto, I mean, you tell me if you think I'm being overly fastidious here, but it seems brazen. I'm amazed that the reporting on this is so vanilla. I mean, I just want to give a couple of examples because these come from the Financial Times. Now, before our audience screams or chokes into their porridge, I'm choosing the Financial Times deliberately because this is a newspaper that does not like Trump, right? The whole kind of globalist, as he would call it, worldview is epitomized by the Financial Times. So you would expect them to be extremely critical, and you'd expect them to be looking out for impropriety of any kind. This was a few days ago. Trump Media Group to raise $2.5 billion to build Bitcoin treasury. They report the fact, which they exclusively got before everyone else. You're thinking someone in the Trump administration is giving them an exclusive, perhaps in exchange for favorable coverage. They're going to raise $1.5 billion in fresh equity and another $1 billion through convertible bonds, the proceeds of which will be used to create a Bitcoin treasury. This is the Trump Media and Technology Group. The deal, first reported by the Financial Times, marks the latest example of a group raising funds in traditional markets to purchase digital assets. Trump has pledged to make the US the crypto capital of the world. Members of the president's inner circle, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Donald Jr., and crypto czar David Sachs, are expected to speak at a big meeting of crypto investors this week. And it's full of these very nice, positive quotes without any suggestion that it's just a bit weird that people across the top of the administration are just personally profiting to the tune of many, many hundreds of millions of dollars by juicing a controversial industry that they have complete power to control.
Yeah, and I think it is flagrant and quite incredible, and I agree. We've kind of been normalized into thinking this is some kind of normal thing, and it really isn't. I think from the crypto industry's point of view, which is what I cover every day and have done for the last 12 years, I think they were taken rather by surprise by Trump and his family's personal dealings in crypto. I think up until the eve of the administration, it wasn't clear that Trump and his family were going to be personally gaining from crypto in multiple ways. I mean, they have now 6 or 7 major investments from a meme coin to a mining venture to the deal that you just described, the Treasury vehicle. And I think up until late January, it wasn't clear that they were going to be doing that at all. And everyone was in Washington celebrating, crypto's kind of coming of age, acceptance into Washington power. And on the very eve of the election, we had the news of this meme coin, and suddenly it was like billions and billions of dollars of value created personally for the Trump administration.
Let's start with that one, because I think some of our listeners and viewers won't really understand what a meme coin is. I'm not sure that I could give a dictionary definition of it. But this is creating a new kind of coin, like a less official version of Bitcoin that people can buy into as a kind of innovative digital currency. Is that
right?
Am I close?
It's pretty close. I mean, you could create a Freddie coin, I could create a Ben coin, anyone could create
maybe
their
that's
own
what we
coin.
should be doing, Ben. By the sounds of things, I'm reading
should
here
be
that
we're wasting our time here on the media.
Trump's crypto project made at least $350 million from the meme coin project alone.
That's right. I mean, it's very easy to create your own meme coin these days. You can go on a site like Pump.Fun. There are thousands and thousands of these coins.
What is Trump coin?
It's just a digital wrapper for a cryptocurrency, and it's with a branding of somebody's name on it. It's as simple as that.
Which he then, in the parlance, juices by talking about it on social media and on speeches. His supporters are then buying it out of loyalty to him as a kind of giving him money, or is it that they think they will make money from it?
I mean, I'm not privy to the inside motivations for why they do it, but presumably they do it because they're going to make money from it. But I mean, like a Ponzi scheme, there were a number of hundred people who did actually make a lot of money out of this. So if you were lucky enough to be on the inside and hitting that button on your computer screen at the moment it came out, then you could have ridden this wave for a few hours and made hundreds of millions of dollars.
What's happened
yourself.
to it now? Trump coin.
Well, now it's crazy. I haven't looked at it this morning, but I think it's down something like 70, 80% from the highs that it reached in the immediate aftermath of the announcement. So there are many thousands of people who have been, who are out of pocket. But there are some hundreds of people who did make a lot of money from it. But most of those were insiders who knew it was happening, who knew the pump was coming, and knew when to get out before the, excuse the language, shit hit the fan. So
and we don't know. We got to be careful what we say for legal reasons. We don't know whether any members of the Trump family or personal circle were members of that group who had access to that information and piled in before the market knew. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility.
I think it's pretty clear, to be honest. I mean, there were a number of investigations in those first few hours looking at particular wallets and where the money was going. And it was pretty clear that the money was going to insiders, including Trump's family and, members of his entourage.
What's particularly striking to me is that it's not just Donald Trump. So he has his two sons, Don and Eric, who are conveniently located outside the administration, technically, and so can kind of freewheel and do these business dealings, even though he is the largest investor and beneficiary of their business dealings. So they are his surrogate. You then have J.D. Vance, himself deep into Bitcoin and crypto. You then have Vivek Ramaswamy, who has slightly been frozen out of the administration, but is a close associate. His own asset management group also announced that they hope to raise $1.5 billion to support Bitcoin acquisitions. Cantor Fitzgerald, which is an advisory firm run by Brandon Lutnick, the son of Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, advises on all of these deals. David Sachs, himself absolutely dripping in these kind of crypto investments, is the crypto czar inside the administration. It's just like, any pretense of a normal liberal democratic situation seems to have been dropped. This is like Banana Republic. It's like a smaller African nation where anyone closely associated, family or friends or cabinet ministers of the ruler, is being personally enriched.
Yeah, and I think in that sense, it's not really about crypto, right? So, I mean, if they were betting on real estate or horses or diamonds, then it would be the same issue. It's about a conflict of interest. And I think it's particularly egregious given that many of these people that you just mentioned are actually the point people in regulating the industry now. These are the people that are setting policy for the United States, the most important government in the world, setting regulation really across the world for this industry, who are now personally enriching themselves by through all of these business ventures. I mean, I would say, Freddie, that I think there's a slight difference between the meme coin thing, which is kind of pretty shady, really. It's kind of a nothing burger digital asset, and it's personally enriching those people. It's a bit different, I think, with Bitcoin, these Bitcoin treasury vehicles, and also another mining venture that Eric Trump has, American Bitcoin. I mean, I think they are legitimate crypto businesses, and the Trump family happens to have a financial stake in those.
I see. So you think we should make a distinction between the Trump coin, which really seems close to the wind and dodgy, versus these investments. But, I'm looking here at the details. So World Liberty Financial, which is the name of their newest venture, has created a new stable coin called USD1. That is owned by the Trump family. So you have the sitting president of the United States. his family is creating an alternative currency called USD1, obviously intended to reference US dollar one. It's like an Air Force One meets US dollar owned by the president. It's almost like tricking people into thinking that it's somehow an official currency, or it's connected to the dollar in some way.
Yeah, I mean, stablecoins are legitimate forms of cryptocurrency. They're effectively dollars on a blockchain, and they do help people to use money more effectively on the internet. So I think the stablecoin innovation itself is a legitimate thing in a way that a meme coin maybe isn't. And there are a lot of people that think that stablecoins are the future of payments in the world. So, but I agree. The impersonal involvement of the Trump family in World Liberty Financial issuing their own stablecoin. And by the way, there's a big stablecoin bit of legislation now going through Congress. This is like a seismic shift.
This is the Genius Act.
The Genius Act.
Tell us about that.
So the Genius Act is basically legislation that covers who is able to issue a stablecoin in the United States. So it sets out a regime for regulating crypto, separating the powers between the federal government and the state governments about who is able to issue and how much kind of collateral they have to have and other things like that. So and a lot of people think this is very important for pushing the cryptocurrency industry forward because stablecoins are the basis for a lot of other forms of innovation in crypto. But again, we need to separate out the kind of personal enrichment question and the kind of question of like the crypto industry and how that's going forward.
Well, let's move on to that second question. And let me now argue against myself, because if there are anyone still watching or listening who is a big crypto fan, they may be already so annoyed with me that they've logged off. What's Freddie got against crypto? Let's make the case for crypto. What is the best argument, as far as you could phrase it, for why it's completely appropriate for a populist government like the Trump administration to be massively deregulating and supporting crypto? Why is it going to help millions of Americans?
Okay, so I mean, effectively, crypto is a better form of money, right? So we just talked about stablecoins, which are dollars issued on a blockchain that allow uninterrupted, unmitigated transactions between two different individuals. So you and I could transact. I could send you $100 in stablecoins, and we wouldn't have to pay anything to anyone to do that transaction. There would be no middleman, no transaction fee. You would get your $100 within seconds, and we wouldn't have to go through a bank, or we wouldn't have to use any kind of intermediary that would delay the transaction or cause any cost to us. That could be a huge boon to people around the world who are currently paying billions and billions of dollars in transaction fees, who face massive delays for sending money cross-border, particularly. For instance, if a worker, if a Mexican worker is in Florida, he earns $100 and he wants to send $50 back to his family in Mexico. He currently has to pay 10 or 12% transaction fees on that amount to send back. So his family's effectively only getting 45 of those $50 back. And with a stable coin, if he uses a stable coin, he can do that for free. That's $5 extra in the pocket of that family in Mexico.
So the argument, at least, is that it liberates people from the gatekeepers and the corrupt middle layer of financial transactions dominated by big banks and in some cases governments that can act coercively, undemocratically, controlling people, not enabling them to be free in their free market powers. And so it's a tool of liberation. That is the core message, isn't it?
It's a tool of liberation as well. And it's also emancipating money to allow people to do all kinds of other things with it. I mean, a stable coin, for instance, is a form of programmable money. So you can set any conditions around the use of that stablecoin. That programmability is important because it turns money into software. It turns money into something that is trackable and tangible in terms of a transaction.
But I've got to say, that doesn't sound very liberating. I mean, I remember just 2-3 years ago, the conversations we were having on YouTube were all about how important cash was, because they were trying to put everyone on central bank digital currencies that would prescribe how you were going to spend your money. So in fact, stablecoin sounds arguably more prescriptive and allows more potential for people to control your ability to spend how you like.
Well, I mean, that's maybe just a bad example. And I was thinking more of in the context of aid or development. There's been a lot of obviously controversy about sending large amounts of money to people who need humanitarian relief, and that money going missing. By sending it in the form of a stable coin, you can track that money to make sure it's not being spent corruptly. That's what I was trying to get at there.
I'm just trying to thrash through the arguments here, because the example you gave, which is a really powerful one of the Mexican worker in Florida, Mexican workers in Florida are not always top of the Trump administration's priority list, particularly if they're not yet citizens. There's a bit of a clash there, isn't there, between a sort of national populist agenda, where it's all about America first, making sure that the American people get the benefit of transactions and the economy, versus really a big part of the crypto movement, which is transnational. It is about diminishing the power of the state or democratically elected governments to control the currencies. And it's about, you could say it's a globalist tool, because it really just makes money even more fluid. It denigrates borders, and it's Davos Man 3.0.
Yeah, I mean, the ironies are multiple and completely delicious here, right? So, I mean, Bitcoin was started in the aftermath, or came of age in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. Embedded in the very code of Bitcoin was a headline from the London Times talking about the bailouts of the banks in the wake of that crisis. So it was very much born of a reaction against this combination of corporate power, financial power, and government power, which is what those bailouts represented. And here you are again, this combination of financial power and government power in that very innovation around Bitcoin. So there is a tremendous irony in that. And I would go back to what I said at the beginning. The reason why that's happening is because Bitcoin has wanted, on the one hand, this liberation technology, Bitcoin, but on the other hand, they had a desperate need to be accepted by the powers that be, by Wall Street, by government, in order to be the industry it is today. So they had to make this kind of Faustian bargain between the independence and libertarianism of Bitcoin and that technology, and the reality of, if they wanted the Bitcoin industry or the crypto industry to really be embedded in the future, then they needed this official acceptance. So they've kind of made this bargain, and that bargain has happened to go through the guy that's arguably least trustworthy in terms of government power, and that's Donald Trump and his family.
So what do you think happens next here? I mean, if we have 4 years of full embrace of crypto by the American administration, J.D. Vance was talking about it needs to emerge into the regular economy, out of the kind of fringes, out of the corners, into normal transactions. Do you think we could be seeing people going to Walmart and paying for their groceries with Bitcoin? I mean, how quickly and how far do you think this could go if the administration carries on in this way?
Well, they're two different things. I mean, do I think the crypto will become absolutely embedded in the financial system and be part of the payment system, for instance? Absolutely. I don't think people will be paying in Walmart with Bitcoin, but I think they will be paying in Walmart with some form of stable coin, because it's just better technology. It's not just about like Bitcoin or about the Trump family or about some of these scandals around crypto. And all of those things are very distasteful, and there have been many scandals in the 12 years I've been covering crypto. But I think the fundamental technology of crypto is better money. So I think that will be accepted. I think on the political side of things, it's the question of like, will the crypto industry continue to be so lock and step behind the Trump administration and the Republican Party? There's been a lot of influential people in the crypto community who supported Trump last November and supported him right up until the inauguration in January, who are now turning against him when they see all these personal arrangements. So I think the question becomes, will the crypto community continue to be lockstep behind it? And I think, you talk about the Bitcoin conference being the kind of official conference of the crypto community. I wouldn't quite say that. There are many other there are many other conferences out there. And there are many other people who are not in Las Vegas this week who don't support Donald Trump and are rather disgusted by the whole spectacle of it. So I think the question will be whether the crypto community and crypto voters will turn out for Trump and maybe J.D. Vance if he runs in 2026 or 2028. I mean, whether they will still be there in the same way that they were before, because crypto in 2022 or 2024 really needed Trump. They really needed a political friend. And maybe after we've had the deregulation, after we've had the legislation that's going through now, will they need the Trump administration and the Republican Party in the same way? That's the big question.
That's an interesting concept to kind of leave on in a way, because right now you've got all of the Trump guys basking in the love of the crypto community. I mean, J.D. Vance, the Trump kids, they couldn't say a sentence without getting a standing ovation in Las Vegas. But what you're saying is that the movement is bigger even than they are, and that once the crypto movement has got what it needs from the Trumps, it may choose to jettison them.
I think on both sides there's kind of a transactional relationship. And I mean, I think there are some people in crypto, a lot of people in crypto, who genuinely love Trump. They see him as a kind of a brilliant, powerful American. But I think there are a lot of people who see the relationship more transactionally, and actually understand what we just talked about, this kind of delicious irony of this kind of libertarian anti-government technology getting into bed with the US administration, and quite antagonistic to that idea long term. So I think the idea of crypto in the long term being in bed with an administration like the Trump administration, I think is kind of disgusting to a lot of people in crypto. So I would say that they may not be there in the same way that they were last time around.
The key thing also is going to be to watch and measure what percentage of total crypto value is held by little guys, middle class, retail investors, and what percentage of it is held by extremely rich / institutional investors. I mean, do you know what those numbers look like today, roughly?
We don't know. I think what's interesting is that in the last bull run, so this is like in 21, 22, that was very much known as a retail boom. It was mostly driven, sort of 70-80% of the price action, particularly in Bitcoin, was driven by, people like you and me, normal people, and it wasn't really an institutional play. But in the last year or so, particularly when we've seen the approval of ETFs, which are a very important kind of vehicle for mainstreaming crypto, it's much more of an institutional-led movement. So I think, in actual fact, even though Vance is getting up on stage and saying this is kind of a retail movement of crypto, I think you could argue that the boom now is much more institutional-led. It's much more of a Wall Street movement than a mom-and-pop movement.
And just for fun, I just typed into Google here, BlackRock crypto. I mean, BlackRock is really the bête noire of the populists. It's considered the kind of DEI-infused, Bill Gates-inspired globalist Davos firm par excellence. BlackRock are the bad guys if you're a pro-Trump populist. I mean, the stories, even in the past day, Ethereum ETFs score 38 million inflows as BlackRock leads the charge. IBIT absorbs all Bitcoin ETF inflows as BlackRock surges ahead. BlackRock to acquire 10% stake in USDC issuer Circle. I mean, this is the last 24 hours. BlackRock is piling in right now, as are many of those institutions.
Yeah, again, there's a delicious irony there of, this was a movement supposed to be very much anti-Wall Street, anti-big banks, anti-institutions like BlackRock. And as you say, this bull run is very much led by Wall Street, led by those big firms. But I mean, my attitude has always been that it takes a village, right? So there are a lot of things that I find that are great about crypto. It is a global movement of people who are questioning, the kind of status quo, and I think that is helpful. And I think once you get beyond the scams, we are seeing a rather healthy movement of people thinking about the future and leaning into decentralization, which is a pretty healthy concept to take away power from big government, take away power from big tech companies, and give rights, digital rights in the new online world to individuals. So I strongly believe that you have to take the rough with the smooth here, and some of it's rather odious, and some of it is maybe more healthy than you might imagine.
So you're still a believer. Got any Bitcoins, Ben?
A few, yeah.
A few, $110,000 each nearly today. I think drinks can be on you next time.
Well, I don't know about that, but
how high can it go, do you think? Let's become a crypto investor tips website for about 3 minutes. What's the ceiling of this run, do you think?
I mean, I think it'll go to 1 million, right? And I think it'll go as high as you can imagine. And that's not because I'm some kind of craven believist. It's because, Bitcoin does have unique properties. It is one of the few assets out there, mainstream assets now, that is scarce, that there is only 21 million Bitcoin out there. There are many well-moneyed groups now that are buying as much Bitcoin as they can. So you would think that the price will continue to go up and this will become more and more scarce and more valuable over time.
That was Ben Schiller, the managing editor of opinion at CoinDesk, a leading crypto observing publication. I think we kind of explored some of the positives as well as the negatives there by the end, if you stayed with us to that point. It's a very strange situation to have so many members of the administration so closely and proactively involved in a very specific, rapidly evolving and controversial industry. I think we could all agree that there are legitimate questions to be asked around that, no matter whether you love or hate Donald Trump. But it must also be conceded that the crypto movement is now out of the box. It's not going back. And I suppose we all need to, at the very least, understand it, because it looks distinctly like it's going to be part of the future. Thanks for tuning in. This was UnHerd.